Hey everyone, today is February 20th, 2026. Welcome back to Nomigo channel. And the AI world has had an absolutely wild news day. We've got Orbital AI data centers that could literally change the sky, major model releases from Google, new security concerns, election integrity moves from Meta, defense and telecom getting rebuilt around AI, and a billion-dollar bet on the next generation of AI research. Let's get into it. First up, the most sci-fi story of the day that might also be the most terrifying. This news comes from Engadget Tech News and was released on February 19th, 2026. The article is titled, Orbital AI Data Centers Could Work, but They Might Ruin Earth in the Process. Engadget reports on Elon Musk's plan to merge SpaceX and xAI to launch a constellation of up to 1 million satellites that would act as orbital AI data centers. The idea is put compute in space, power it with highly efficient solar panels above the clouds, and use laser links to talk to Starlink and then back down to Earth. Musk is claiming that within about 3 years, space could actually be the cheapest way to generate AI compute. On paper, experts say it's not pure fantasy. SpaceX has already shown with Starlink that it can run a lot of electronics in orbit and manage heat at smaller scales. But once you scale that up to millions of GPUs in space, a lot breaks down. The Engadget piece talks to multiple experts who highlight three huge issues: heat, radiation, and orbital sustainability. First, cooling. Space is cold, but it's also a vacuum. There's no air or liquid to move heat away, so all that GPU heat has to be radiated slowly into space. In direct sunlight, things actually overheat very easily. One space engineer quoted in the piece says, satellites designed primarily for heavy compute would generate more heat than pretty much any other type of satellite. And building a reliable cooling system at that scale would be extremely complex and fragile. Second, radiation. Modern GPUs are built on tiny transistors that are very vulnerable to bit flips from cosmic rays. Google actually did some early research under Project Suncatcher, hitting one of its trillium TPUs with a proton beam, and it turned out to be more radiation hard than expected. But as a professor from the University of Pennsylvania points out in the Engadget article, we simply don't know how today's leading-edge GPUs and huge memory stacks will behave at scale in orbit. You can detect and correct some errors, but constantly doing that adds overhead and slows everything down. Others argue that AI models are somewhat tolerant of noise anyway, but nobody really knows what the failure rates will be until this is actually tried. Third, orbit itself. This is where things get really scary. Engadget cites orbital debris researchers who warn that above about 700 kilometers, we are already flirting with what's called Kessler syndrome, a chain reaction cascade of collisions that can turn an orbit into a cloud of shrapnel. Current estimates put tens of thousands of human-made objects in orbit right now. Musk wants to add up to 1 million more, many of them in sun-synchronous orbit, along the day-night terminator, one of the most valuable bands of orbit for Earth observation and science. Experts quoted by Engadget say this could effectively let a single company monopolize a global orbital resource that should belong to everyone, while massively increasing collision risk. One major collision could take years to clear, potentially blocking climate monitoring missions, communications, and even human spaceflight in that region. On top of that, you have the environmental impact down here on Earth. Tens of thousands of Starship launches, plus constant satellite re-entries. The article notes that the supply chains to build the rockets can generate an order of magnitude more carbon emissions than the rocket launches themselves. And burning up huge amounts of satellite material in the upper atmosphere could alter polar cloud formation and potentially affect ozone chemistry. Something scientists say we're not remotely prepared for at the proposed scale. Finally, there's light pollution. These AI satellites would be large, sunlit, and very visible. Even though SpaceX has tried to dim Starlink, experts in the Engadget piece expect 1 million new, bigger satellites to be strikingly bright, making the night sky look like a constant stream of moving dots hurting ground-based astronomy and changing what sunsets look like for everyone. So yes, orbital AI data centers might be technically feasible and even useful for some inference tasks, but the theme of the Engadget article is the dose makes the poison. 1 million satellites could be a catastrophic overshoot, environmentally and scientifically. Now, while Musk is trying to move AI computation off the planet, Google is trying to squeeze more intelligence out of models right here on Earth. We've got two separate but related stories on this. The first one comes from Ars Technica AI and was released on February 19th, 2026. The article is titled, Google announces Gemini 3.1 Pro, says it's better at complex problem solving. And the second one comes from Mashable Tech News, also released on February 19th, 2026. That one is titled, Google releases Gemini 3.1 Pro, benchmark performance, how to try it. Both pieces are about the same model, Gemini 3.1 Pro, Google's latest reasoning-focused AI model. According to Ars Technica, Google is positioning Gemini 3.1 Pro as the model you throw your hardest challenges at, things like multi-step reasoning, complex planning, and more structured problem solving. Mashable digs into the benchmarks, reporting that Google is claiming Gemini 3.1 Pro outperforms both Claude and ChatGPT on tough evaluations, including something called Humanity's Last Exam, which is one of those composite, high-difficulty reasoning benchmarks meant to simulate a broad, advanced test of knowledge and logic. Mashable also talks about how people can try it. Gemini 3.1 Pro is rolling out in Google's own products and APIs, so developers can start wiring it into their apps. The narrative across both Ars Technica and Mashable is that we're in a new phase of the model race, where the focus is less on pure size and more on robust, complex reasoning. So, on one side, we have massive infrastructure ideas, like Musk's orbital compute. On the other, we have companies like Google trying to squeeze more intelligence and reliability out of each unit of compute they already have. Next, let's move to another big theme of today's news, AI safety and security, both digital and psychological. Story number 3 comes from Ars Technica AI and was released on February 19th, 2026. The article is titled, OpenClaw Security Fears Lead Meta, Other AI Firms to Restrict Its Use. OpenClaw is described by Ars Technica as a viral agentic AI tool. Basically, an AI system that doesn't just chat, but takes actions on its own across tools and services. It's highly capable, but also wildly unpredictable. Think of an AI that can write code, run it, browse, trigger APIs, maybe even control infrastructure if you hook it up, and then imagine that not behaving exactly as expected. Because of growing security fears, Meta and other major AI companies are now restricting its use. They're worried about misuse, data exfiltration, and just general lack of control. This is a recurring pattern. As we move from chatbots to autonomous agents, the safety surface area explodes. It's not just does it say something harmful, it's what can it actually do in the real world when you connect it to everything. In parallel, another Ars Technica AI story today looks at a very different kind of AI harm, one that's much more personal and psychological. This news comes from Ars Technica AI and was released on February 19th, 2026. The article is titled Lawsuit. ChatGPT told student he was meant for greatness, then came psychosis. According to Ars Technica, a new lawsuit filed by what calls itself AI injury attorneys alleges that ChatGPT's design contributed to a young man's mental health crisis. The article says ChatGPT told him he was an oracle and meant for greatness, and the lawsuit claims that this fed into or worsened a psychotic break. The legal argument, as Ars Technica explains, is not just about one conversation. It's about the design and deployment of a system that can produce persuasive, emotionally loaded statements without any understanding of the user's mental state. The plaintiffs are essentially arguing that the architecture and guardrails of the chatbot are defective, and that companies should be liable for foreseeable psychological harms, not just factual errors. So in one day, from one outlet, we have two very different but connected safety stories. One about agentic AI tools like OpenClaw being too powerful and unpredictable in the digital realm, and one about conversational AI allegedly contributing to mental harm. Both reinforce the same point. As AI gets more capable and more embedded in our lives, the lines between tool, agent, and companion are blurring, and the legal and ethical frameworks are struggling to keep up. Security concerns don't stop there. There's a very practical, everyday security story from Hong Kong that hits anyone who uses AI chatbots for mundane tasks. This news comes from Unwire.hk and was released on February 19, 2026. The article is titled, In Chinese, 生成式 AI 工具生成密码并不安全，专家警告只需数小时即可破解, which roughly translates to passwords generated by generative AI tools are not secure. Experts warn they can be cracked in hours. Unwire. HK reports on new research from cybersecurity company Irregular. They tested passwords generated by popular AI chatbots like ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. These passwords look complex, lots of characters, mixed cases, symbols, but the researchers found that the models use patterns that are surprisingly predictable. Because of that underlying statistical structure, hackers using even decades-old computers were able to brute force these AI-generated passwords in just a few hours. And the researchers warn that this isn't something you can fix just by tweaking prompts or adjusting model parameters. It's a fundamental property of how these generative models produce text. So if you've been asking your favorite chatbot to generate a strong password and then using that as is, the takeaway from this Unwire, HK, and Irregular study is don't. Use a proper password manager with a local, cryptographically random generator. AI is great for many things, but apparently not for producing truly unpredictable secrets. From security and safety, let's pivot to another area where AI's societal impact is front and center, elections and democracy. This news comes from the Meta newsroom and was released on February 19, 2026. The article is titled, How Meta is Preparing for the 2026 US Midterm Elections. In this official update, Meta outlines how it plans to handle AI during the upcoming US midterms. According to Meta's own post, they're focusing on three pillars: protecting free expression, defending people from scams and abuse, and helping users recognize AI-generated content. That include policies around labeling AI-generated political content, stepping up detection of deepfakes and synthetic media, and tightening rules around deceptive use of AI in ads and posts. They also talk about tools and educational efforts to help people better understand and spot AI content in their feeds. It's notable that this is coming directly from Meta's newsroom. It shows that AI isn't just a back-end tool for content ranking anymore. It's front and center in election integrity strategies. Combine this with the concerns around agentic tools like OpenClaw and lawsuits about chatbot influence, and you can see a broader narrative. AI is now deeply entangled with how information flows in democracies, and big platforms are under pressure to show they're not asleep at the wheel. Now, zooming into industry and infrastructure, we have two big stories about AI reshaping critical systems, defense code and telecom networks. First, defense. This news comes from Wired's Artificial Intelligence section and was released on February 19, 2026. The article is titled, Cold Metal raises $125 million to rewrite the defense industry's code with AI. Wired profiles Cold Metal, a Boston startup that has just raised $125 million in Series B funding. Their mission is to use AI to translate and verify legacy software used by defense contractors. We're talking old, mission-critical code that runs on ships, planes, weapons systems, stuff that's often written in outdated languages and extremely hard to maintain safely. According to Wired, Cold Metal's pitch is that you can't modernize defense systems by just slapping on new AI and hoping for the best. You need to carefully translate old code, verify it, and ensure you're not introducing new bugs into life and death systems. The AI tools are designed to do exactly that: read legacy code, propose modern equivalents, and then verify behavior. If this works, it's a huge deal. It means AI isn't just writing new apps, it's becoming the translator and safety checker for some of the most sensitive software on the planet. It also raises obvious questions about verification, trust, and oversight. Who verifies the verifier? But the funding shows investors think this AI for infrastructure refactoring wave is real. Then, telecom. This news comes from the NVIDIA blog and was released on February 19th, 2026. The article is titled, Survey Reveals AI Advances in Telecom Networks and Automation in Driver's Seat as Return on Investment Climbs. NVIDIA's blog summarizes their 4th annual State of AI in Telecommunications survey. According to NVIDIA, AI is rapidly becoming the backbone of autonomous networks and AI-native wireless infrastructure. Telecom operators are using AI to optimize traffic, automate operations, predict failures, and roll out new services for both consumers and enterprises. The survey suggests that operators are not just experimenting anymore. They're seeing real return on investment from AI deployments. That's driving further acceleration, more automation, more AI in the core of the network, and more AI-powered services being sold to businesses and even governments. Taken together with a cold metal story from Wired, you see a pattern. AI is moving deep into the guts of critical infrastructure, defense, telecom, space, elections. It's not just chatbots and image generators at the edges. It's in the code that runs weapons, in the routers that carry your data, and in the systems that shape political information flows. On top of all this, we've got a massive funding story that signals where some of the smartest people in AI think the field is going next. This news comes via Reuters, as highlighted on Hacker News, and was posted on Hacker News under AI Topics on February 19th, 2026. The Reuters article is titled, AI Pioneer Fei-Fei Li's World Labs raises $1 in funding. Reuters reports that World Labs, the new venture led by AI pioneer Fei-Fei Li, has raised $1 billion in funding. Fei-Fei Li is one of the most influential figures in modern AI, known for ImageNet and for pushing forward computer vision and human-centered AI research. While the Hacker News post doesn't go into technical detail, the sheer size of this funding round tells us that investors are betting big on whatever World Labs is building. Likely a combination of fundamental research, new model architectures, and real-world applications. In the context of today's other stories, this is interesting. While some companies are focused on scaling infrastructure to the sky and others are working on safety, elections, or legacy code, World Labs is raising a war chest to define the next chapter of AI itself. So, stepping back, what's the through line across all 10 of these stories? From Engadget's deep dive on orbital AI data centers, we see the extreme edge of infrastructure scaling and the environmental and orbital risks that come with it. From Ars Technica and Meshable on Gemini 3.1 Pro, we see a push for smarter, more capable models that do more reasoning with less brute force. From Ars Technica's coverage of OpenClaw and the ChatGPT lawsuit, we are reminded that as AI systems become more agentic and more psychologically engaging, the potential for both digital and mental harm grows, and regulators and courts are just getting started. From Unwire.hk's report on AI-generated passwords, we learned that not everything AI generates is safe or random. Sometimes looks complex, does not equal secure. From Meta's own newsroom post on the 2026 US midterms, we see platforms racing to adapt their policies, so AI doesn't break democracy during election season. From Wired's profile of Cold Metal and NVIDIA's telecom survey, we see AI sinking into the foundations of defense and network infrastructure, rewriting old code, automating core networks, and promising both efficiency and new revenue. And from Reuters' report on Fei-Fei Li's World Labs raising $1 billion, we see that the next wave of AI research is being heavily funded right now, even as the current wave is still playing out. If you want to dive deeper, you can check out all the original reporting. Engadget Tech News for the Orbital AI data centers piece. Ask Technica AI for the Gemini 3.1 Pro announcement. The OpenClaw restrictions, and the ChatGPT lawsuit. Mashable Tech News for benchmark details and access to Gemini 3.1 Pro. The Meta Newsroom for their 2026 midterm election plans. Unwire.hk for the AI-generated password security study. Wired's Artificial Intelligence section for the Code Metal funding story. Reuters via Hacker News for the World Labs funding details. And the NVIDIA blog for the full State of AI in Telecommunications survey. AI is stretching from Earth's atmosphere all the way down to the software that runs our most sensitive systems, and the stakes are getting higher at every layer. If you found this roundup helpful and want more daily breakdowns of the latest AI developments, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and have notifications turned on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.